It's week 2 of Matt James's season of The Bachelor, and normally we kind of end up with one group date, or pardon me, two group dates and one one-on-one when there's like a huge house full of people. But for some reason, we're sitting there with like the most people that have ever been on a season of The Bachelor, and we get two one-on-ones and a massive group date. 18 women went on one group date. Like, I think that's more people than Tayshia started her season with. Like, that's incredible. And like, you put that, and another thing that really blows my mind is we started with 32 women this season, and we've already seen in the previews that one more contestants show up, plus Heather shows up from Colton's season, which is totally wild. So like, Matt James is pretty much going to have almost 40 women to have chosen from by the time this season gets to the end. That is absolutely wild. And I guess that's what happens when you take all those contestants, put them in quarantine, and then feel bad that you put them all in quarantine and then didn't cast them all and then just put them on the show anyways. But anyways, let's get into our episode. So we started out with a one-on-one, Bri and Matt. This was a pretty good date. You know, I wasn't getting vibes of two people who were totally smitten with each other, but they were definitely developing a connection. And I definitely think that they have some things in common that could lead to them being together at the end, or at least seeing Bri make it very far. You know, Bri was one of my favorites last week, and there she is on the one-on-one, gets the first rose of the week. Plus a pretty good date. So they started the date off going quadding together, which, you know, I thought, yeah, whatever. And then we get to that moment where Matt's like, hey, Bri, why don't you jump on the back of my quad? And Matt, in typical guy fashion, decides that he needs to immediately show off by doing donuts. How does that end? With Bri and Matt laying on the ground and the quad tipped over on its side. They were pretty good sports about it. They were kind of laughing about it, and honestly, they're lucky that neither of them got hurt anymore. So yeah, at least it was something that they could laugh off in the end. Then we moved on to the evening portion of the date where Bri and Matt really furthered their connection. Like I said before, I didn't think Matt was really smitten with her, but definitely there is a connection there. They really talked about their upbringing, and Bri was raised by a single mom, and most of Matt's life it was just him and his mom. So they had some connections there. They talked about, you know, wanting to have family, and how all their life they kind of yearned for that family, and it definitely helped bring them closer together. Also on the date, we definitely got some obligatory topless Matt James, and I think that's going to be a theme all season long. Like, when you have, I don't even know how many abs he has, 50, 60, it's some ridiculous amount. Like, people talk about a six-pack, he's got like a full 24-pack, and it's crazy. But yeah, every chance they get to have him shirtless, seems like they're just going for it this season. So Bri gets the first rose of the week, and then we move on to our group date. The group date is a great big wedding shoot. You know, we didn't really get a ton out of that, like as viewers. I did think that Serena P and Matt looked like a really cute couple when they were together. So that's about all I could take away from that. And you know, it's hard to read into it when it's just two people there standing posing for a camera, and on top of that, we don't even get to see everyone go through it. From there, we move on to, like, it's a new twist on a Bachelor staple, and that is a group date that pits one half of the people against the other half of the people, with the winners getting more time with the lead. And this season was no exception. At least there was a little bit of a twist on it where everyone's in a wedding dress and trying to cover each other in paint while also trying to steal a heart. In the end, I don't actually know what the goal of the paint was besides making a mess. It didn't, like, I was like, oh, so you get hit by the paint, you're going to be out. But then we see everyone's just pelting each other with paint and just carrying on their merry way. In the end, red team wins, which unfortunately had Victoria on it. So we were then cursed with more Victoria screen time. Once we moved on to the next portion of the date, there were two people that really stood out, and one for a negative, one for a positive. Let's go to the negative first. She's going to be the biggest negative for this whole season until she gets the boot, and that is Victoria. I really enjoyed how she's having this conversation with Matt, and she's just talking about how deep they are. They're not talking about anything deep. She's just saying like, oh, I just love how we can be so deep together. We're so deep. And it's, instead of actually opening up and saying anything, just kind of like a little head scratcher to me. And I'm not even sure Matt picked up on it. It seemed like he just let it slide. And then the other person was Lauren. They just really had the best conversation out of anyone we saw. And of course, she gets the group date rose. Lauren hasn't been someone that's really stood out to me so far. So her getting this group date rose could lead to her just getting more time in the future, which could be very good for her. All right, our next date, the second one-on-one, ends up being Sarah. So Sarah and Matt, they get to go on a plane ride. Looked absolutely terrifying to me, like open cockpit plane, and you're just cruising around, wind blowing in your hair. I would want absolutely nothing to do with that. Like, just leave me on the ground. Like, we're gonna be better. Let's just sit in the plane on the ground. We don't need to go in the air. No, thank you. After that, they land. They get a little bit of time together after the plane ride, and you could really tell that Sarah did not want to open up, did not want to talk about her family, did not feel comfortable doing that, and Matt was definitely reading that energy. So they head into the evening portion, to the dinner portion of the date, and that is looming over Matt and Sarah the whole time until Sarah starts opening up and everything changed. Sarah starts telling the story about her dad and moving back home to help be a caregiver for him, and that, she almost didn't come on the show because she felt like she needed to stay home with her father. And you could really tell that hearing all of that and having her open up really affected Matt. And I thought that they went way deeper than what Matt and Bri went. I thought Bri and Matt maybe had more fun together, but the emotional connection seemed way more intense for Matt and Sarah. So of course, Sarah gets a rose and we head into the cocktail party. The cocktail party, really we get one nice conversation between Abigail and Matt. We get a brief little snippet of Rachel and Matt, and they were two of the prominent people from week one. And then we immediately, kind of do a fast forward montage through some conversations and jump into Victoria drama. She is definitely targeted Marilyn. Absolutely 100% targeted her. She's a very soft-spoken person who is not wanting to be confrontational, not wanting to really badmouth anyone, and it's a perfect target for Victoria. And I think that this is beginning to create a pattern with Victoria that we are going to continue to see until she gets sent home. Like all the previews, it really shows her going after one person. You know, I think that Marilyn is going to get sent home, which is very tragic. And Victoria, we've already seen that she's in the previews for next week, and looks like she starts targeting Katie, who was someone who already started to establish that she doesn't really feel comfortable in that living arrangement. She doesn't feel comfortable in that sorority environment, and that's going to be Victoria's next target. So hopefully Katie fares better than Marilyn, who was just a little bit too shy and soft spoken to really call out what Victoria is doing. And honestly, the sooner she leaves, the better. And what the hell was Victoria wearing tonight? Like, did she just grab one of the cushion covers from that couch and just kind of crumple it up and put it on? Like, everyone else there looks absolutely stunning. They're dressed to the nines, and Victoria rolls in with a crumpled up curtain. Just get this lady out of here. I'm done with her, and I'm sure all of you are over her as well. So yeah, that's going to wrap things up for this week, because we landed on a cliffhanger where we're in the rose ceremony and Sarah starts to pass out. So we're halfway through the rose ceremony, and that's where we will pick up next week. So I will be back again next Monday for week 3. And until then, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you later.